So let's move on to our last speaker. I hope all participants in the Zoom room are still excited for Professor Park. How are you, Professor Park?
Yeah, I'm fine. Can you hear me?
It's nice to see you again. Professor Park has been a guest speaker several times in international seminar conducted by Moria Theological Seminary. So before Professor Park present her paper, I would like to introduce her profile. So this is Professor Park received her PhD from Claremont Graduate University in USA, and now she's a chair and associate professor of the Department of Theology in the School of Theology at Changjung Christian University, Taiwan. And she is an ordained pastor at Presbyterian Church since 2006. So Professor Park has many writings, monographs, articles, journals, and books. We can see at the screen. Professor Park, expert in feminist theology and contextual theology. Okay, that's the profile from Professor Park. So, Professor Park, you have 1 hour for the presentation, and we will continue with a Q&A session, about 20 until 30 minutes. And now time is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Howard Pardede. It's nice to see you, and thank you for introducing me. I'm so honored to be here and participating this wonderful seminar, and so glad to present my paper at this moment. So I think I'm going to have this kind of PPT at the same time. So since I think 1 hour is enough for me to present my paper, right? So I try to, have some slow reading, or sometimes if time's not, then I will just a little bit skip it. But anyway, I do have here the PPT as itself. Okay, so let's go. Okay, introduction. My title is The Text of Song of Miriam from the Ancient Times and Today. So it will be I am this morning and this afternoon. I'm so glad to participate and learn so many things, textual criticism from the other scholars, right? And then this is really helpful for me. And then it will be for me is ancient times are really important, whether which one is the older one, which one is original, which is the old text, for Lage, right? But I want to the kind of today what we do with the text. That's also important for me. So I'm so glad to be here today. So let's go. When discussing the Pentateuch, Moses is often considered as a central figure, regardless whether we attribute authorship to him or not. Whenever the question of authorship arises, some scholars argue that the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible written about Moses, when Moses emerges as a central figure in Israelite history, Miriam's role seems to be diminished. So this paper examines Miriam's influence in the Hebrew Bible and its relevance today. To achieve this, I will analyze the Miriam text in Exodus and focus on the Song of Miriam and conjunction with the Song of the Sea through that lens of textual criticism. And furthermore, I will explore interpretations of Miriam using the post-colonial criticism. But these two approaches aim to enrich readers' understanding of the biblical text and its application in the various contextual settings. So Miriam and Exodus chapter 15, 21, 20 and 21. So this is considered one of the earliest songs in Hebrew Bible tradition. The text is closely connected to the Song of the Sea from the macro textual perspective. Verses 20 and 21 typically associate with the Yahweh's tradition, while the 1 to 19 are classified under the many specific sources. And although verses 20 and 21 are relatively short compared to other songs in Psalms or other biblical texts, they serve as a key confession for the Exodus narrative and even for the Pentateuch. And this director and these directors or endeavored to collect two songs and enforces meanings of the Miriam songs. So now we go to Exodus chapter 15, 20, and 21. Miriam, the prophetess, a sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and dancing. Miriam sang to them, "Sing to the Lord Adonai or Yahweh, for he is highly exalted. Horse and riders he has thrown into the sea." Verse 20 begins with Miriam's name, emphasizing her role as a leading the figure in the following two verses, which features victorious song and dance. The name Miriam originated from the Mara, meaning is bitter, or the one can read Miriam in First Chronicles chapter 4 was son of the Bithia, the daughter of Pharaoh. So Miriam probably related to the Egyptian setting. All is would derive from Egypt and Hebrew and Ugaritic noun. So Miriam might come from the Egyptian MRI, which means to love, from the Canaanite root RYM, to give. So Hebrew may be temura, offering. So William Propp suggests Miriam means eminence. The origin of the name Miriams may be traced to several languages and various meanings of demonstrating that the names was popular in ancient Near East. Furthermore, it connects to the Mary in New Testament, as the Greek name Mary is equivalent to the Hebrew Miriam. In both the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament, Miriam was prominent name. History and storytelling and her role, significant role, is highlighted by the prophetesses, maybe, yeah. Verse 20, Miriam is the references to prophetess, a title that is uncommon title for women in the Hebrew Bible. However, other prophetesses mentioned include Deborah, Huldah, and Isaiah's wife, and Noadiah. What was the role of the prophetess for Miriam? I believe this question is key to understanding her significance in the text and its interpretation today. So at this point, two aspects can be identified: a communicator with a god or musician for ritual purposes. So Hannah Tervanotko suggests that the role of the prophetess is ancient Near East and among the Israelites was significant in compassioning the communication with God and the professional duties. Meanwhile, Drora or Donald Zettel interprets Miriam as a leading a group of culture musician and in ancient Israel, highlighting that female prophecies in ancient Israel was accepted, even though female priesthood was not. Miriam, the leadership in Numbers 12, confirm her prophetic mission. Alongside Moses and her brother Aaron, Miriam serves as one of the leaders of the Israelites during their wilderness journey. Miriam and Aaron question Moses' role as God's chosen leader, particularly objecting to his marriage to Cushite women. Their complaint seems to go beyond the marriage, as they challenge Moses' exclusive access to God's evaluation. And they say, "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?" And the Lord heard it. The verse reveals tension in their understanding of the prophetic authority and their role in the community. So in Numbers chapter 12, God in God intervenes decisively, forming Moses' special relationship with God and rebuking Miriam and Aaron for their presumptions. Miriam is struck with the leprosy as a sign of a divine displeasure. Aaron pleads with Moses on her behalf, and Moses intercedes his healing. God instructs her to be shut outside the camp for 7 days and symbolize both purification and restoration. Despite this setback, Miriam's broader role in leading and guiding Israel remaining important. So her leadership alongside Moses and Aaron is acknowledged in Micah chapter 6. And God reminds Israel, "For I brought you up from the land of Egypt, redeemed you from the house of slavery. And I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam." And Miriam is challenging to Moses, reflecting her desire to affirm her prophetic role, although her failure in Numbers 12 highlights human weakness of God's chosen leaders. She was still welcomed by the people. The Israelites wait for Miriam to complete her quarantine. The people did not set out on the march until Miriam, and they've been brought in again. When during this wilderness journey, Miriam's prophetic leadership persisted. Miriam is referred to as Aaron's sister in verse 20, and not Moses' sister, because Aaron is her older brother. In the Hebrew Bible tradition, Miriam is not identified as a wife or mother. However, in Jewish tradition, it was uncommon for a woman to remain single. So Joseph is considered Hur to be Miriam's husband. And while rabbinic traditions identify Caleb as her husband and Hur as her son, woman's status in ancient Israel was deeply connected to patriarchal framework. Exodus chapter 15, Miriam's status is tied to this system with no other name but Aaron mentioned to affirm her role. Her designations was a prophetess understood by her connections to Aaron, whose prophet role is affirmed by the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "See, I have made you like a god to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet." In verse 20, the three Hebrew words, Miriam, prophetess, Aaron, emphasize Miriam's prophetic mission, even as she leads with a trembling in dancing and singing. When the woman performed, they hold hoop, a small hand drum without a metal disc. Using drums symbolize victory in battle, and their participations reflect their traditional role in welcoming warriors. In contrast, Psalm 68 highlights a cultic focus on praising God. Their song could be elaborated with a dance as a symbol of joy following the victory, Mehola. Verse 21 begins with a vowel consecutive in the third feminine person singular, referring to the Miriam by Ha'at. So both verse 21 and 20 and 21 highlight Miriam as a main character of the song, the basic meaning of the Ana. This too may be answer or respond, though many translators rendering it a sing. Hebrew verb can be interpreted different ways based on the parallels in the Arabic or Bedouin tradition, where songs are improved by a leader, whether following chorus, whether they are woman or man. However, one cannot guarantee an exact translation into English. So, according to Davies, interpretation of the Miriam song is best supported by the broader context, where Anna serves as a call to worship, positioning her as a cantor. Still, the simpler translation is preferred and is aligned with the other instances of the root. The verb followed lahem, a masculine third person plural form rather than the feminine form. Miriam also used that the masculine imperative, she who to sing, to issue the command to sing. Verse 20, it is the evidence that Miriam and the woman went out together to sing and dance. If Miriam command to woman, use this the feminine plural, verse 20 can be read more smoothly. However, did Miriam command the sons of the Israel to sing in the corresponding verse 20? There might be two possibilities to consider regarding the gender incongruence in verse 21. First, the response in verse 21 to the masculine plural in verse 19 extended Miriam's song to encompass the entire chapter, Exodus chapter 15, including the Song of the Sea in verses 1 to 18. Second, gender mismatches are maybe common feature of Hebrew grammar. But Miriam may still have intended her song specifically for the woman. Either interpretation affirms that Miriam was the leader of the song in verses 1 to 19 and 20 and 21. Verse section, Miriam's role is presented within the literary context, which links her song with the Song of the Sea and highlights the significance of the Lord's salvation. In the second section, Miriam literally led the woman in the praising the Lord's glorious victory over seas, over horses and riders. Chariotry enables military victories over the Hyksos, Hittites, and Arabians and the Macedonians. In the second millennium BCE, the Egyptians renounces for the military's might and the expertise in the chariot warfare appeared unbeatable. However, the chariot military could not threaten Israel because the Lord's power was stronger than that of the Egyptian. The scenery of the chariot occurred in Exodus chapter 15, Pharaoh neglecting the release of the Israelites and prepared his army, including 600 elite chariots and other forces, to pursue the Israelites. With hearts hardened by the Lord, the Egyptians chased the bodily departing Israelites, eventually undertaking them their camp and the sea near the Pi-Hahiroth and against the Baal, Japhon. As Pharaoh's army pursued Moses, parted the sea in order the Israelites cross the safely. God protected them with all the crowd, as you know well, this kind of story. So stories in Exodus chapter 14 was summarized as the style of the song in Exodus 15, verse 21b, by using lama, hast or shoot. Horse riders have thrown into the sea. So verse 21b also the part of the song that uniquely featured rejoicing Israel's deliverance, as it is the verses 1b through 18. So verse 21b confirmed that 20 and 21 belong to the genre of the victorious song, as it contains and praise the song, the Lord who achieved a military triumph. So as noted earlier, verse 21a and verse 1 are connected by the repetition of the same Hebrew verb, shir, and ga'ah, to raise and exalted. This is the evidence that one needs to interpret 20 and 21 along with the 1 to 18. So if we could see this one, then William, Exodus 15, titled the Song of the Sea, also can be divided in three sections, verse 1, 12, 13 to 18, and 19. Part 1 is a mix of poetic forms. Verse 1b as a first-person poet, 2 to 3 are hymned, but Yahweh, and third person the subject, and 4 to 5 and 8 to 6 a narrative. So 6 to 7 and 11 are 12 as healing narrative, respectively. Part 2 begins with the 13 narrative with Adonai Yahweh as a second person subject, and shift through the 14 Israelites narrative in 14 and 17. And then conclusion is going to be one of the 18, and then another conclusion, the 19. The verse 1, Moses and the Israelites sang a song praising the Lord's greatness, celebrating his triumph by seizing horse drive into the Exodus and his power and deliverance, as Miriam sang. So verse 1 to 22, Israel songs as strength, defense, and salvation, exalting him as a warrior whose power shattered their enemies. They celebrated his majesty's right hand and his first, Pharaoh's army into the sea and throwing them like a stone in the depths. God's anger consumed their foe, and by his breath, waters parted and then, or the later covered the Egyptians. So despite the enemy's boasters of victory, they were overwhelmed by the sea. The song glorified the unmatched holiness, majesty, and wonders, declaring him unique among all gods. He's mighty and bringing all the deliverance, swallowing up and adversaries, affirming the divine power and glory. So verse 13 to 18, the Israelites praised God's unfailing love, strength, and leading and redeeming his people, guiding them to holy delivery. And they proclaimed the fear, trembling, and the surrounding nations, Philistia, Edom, Moab, and Canaan, and his power. So God's people who has really passed safely, he had established them on his holy mountain and sanctuary. The song, this really song concludes this kind of declaration of Lord's eternal reign, celebrating his sovereignty and faithfulness. So verse 19, Pharaoh's horses and chariot are all engulfed at the Lord's return to the sea waters. So one must consider the association image of the ritual in which really the sea crossing dramatically and re-entered throughout the verses 1 to 21. The verses 20 and 21 depict a ritual with the instrument, and while the verses 1 to 19 form part of a liturgical section. If that's so, right, what about the other the Exodus, right? Chapter 1 to 2 with Miriam and Moses. Moses is one of the important patriarchs in the Hebrew Bible. From the Exodus 1, we can read Jacob's sons, along with their household, came to Egypt. Totally, 70 people, excluding the Joseph. Means all together, right? So after Joseph and his generation passed, the Israelites, flourished, becoming the fruitful, profiled all the existing strong, filling the land with their all-going numbers. A new king arose in Egypt, but did not know Joseph. Right, that's one of the situation. And then all the things and the Pharaohs ordered the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, to kill any male infants born in Hebrew woman, while allowing the daughters to live. However, the midwives, fearing God, defied Pharaoh's command on allowing the boys to live. When questioned by Pharaoh, they explained that Hebrew women and was to give birth too quickly for midwives to intervene. Right? God rewarded the midwives for their faithfulness, and by blessing them with a family, and the Israelites continued to multiply and grow strong. Frustrated, Pharaoh issued a decree to all Egyptians throw every Hebrew boy into the Nile River, sparing only the girls. This escalation reflected Pharaoh's determination to suppress and the Israelite population, his growing fear of their strength and numbers. Yet God provided, continued to sustain his people. Right? That is the metaphorical reading, understanding of the saving girls connecting the Moses survive as the woman surrounding Moses, midwives, Pharaoh's daughter, Moses' mother, and Miriam, played crucial roles in preserving his life in Exodus chapter 1 and 2. The midwives' fearless actions and wisdom, even in the defiance of the Pharaoh's command, supported not only Moses' life, but also the future of Israelite. So in Exodus, the Leviticus couple, yes, had a son, his mother, and all the beautiful son they really want to keep. Right? So I could a little bit skip here as we know the story. The following, verses 5 to 10, Pharaoh's daughter found a crying baby, and then this is a reed, right, bathing in the Nile. So feeling companionship, she identified him as a Hebrew child. His sister offered to find a nurse, bringing their mother, who nursed him. When he grew older, the child became the Pharaoh's daughter's son, named Moses, meaning is drawn out of the water. Both Moses and biological mother and adoptive mother demonstrated a form of sisterhood through their care for him. His sister Miriam acted as the mediator between the two mothers, even though the text does not mention her name explicitly. So Moses helped 7 daughters of the Midian priest ruled and then rescuing from the shepherd. And when the daughters told their father about the Egyptian who helped them, he invited Moses to eat with them. And Moses stayed with Reuel, and he gave the daughter Zipporah, yes, wife to Moses' marriage. Zipporah also gave the birth to a son, Gershom. This is also becoming on the descendants. So Moses' life stages from his birth, being a nursing baby, and to his marriage and role as a father, demonstrated the presence of the contributions of woman in his life. In particular, his sister appears in the Song of Miriam, chapter 15. Miriam can be understood in comparison to other women and her brothers. The victory song significantly influenced other women's story-related mother as the deliverance. From the Egypt is centered to the Moses narratives in the ancient Israel, and then the remaining pivotal in modern revelation theology and even Minjung theology. And exploring today's theology, I aim to revisit Miriam through the lens of the post-colonial biblical criticism. Miriam, post-colonial biblical criticism, is a methodology that applies the post-colonial theory to biblical text, focusing on the discourse of history, culture, and literature shaped by the colonization. According to Sugit Araja, post-colonialism challenges the belief that it is a purely Western phenomenon, as writers from the global South, like Indian, Chinese, Asian, have developed in the interpretive systems rooted in the everyday struggles and cultural narratives. So it gains recognition in Western academia during the 1980s, aided by Edward Said Orientalism, which books is explored to the link between the colonialism and the knowledge production. Said highlighted how colonial powers used the knowledge to justify and perpetuated domination over colonized people. Following Edward Said's scholarship, the works of the Franz Fanon and Homi Bhabha and Gayatri Spivak and others have further developed post-colonial studies in areas such as psychology, cultural phenomena, and gender. So post-criticism is argued that the people, literature, traditions, thought, and history are shaped by the colonialism, not only geographically, but also culturally and in multiple dimensions. Post-colonial biblical criticism fundamentally involve reframing questions about biblical narratives and how they, traditionally been interpreted. Unlike previous biblical methodologies, it highlights the fact that the setting of the biblical text was shaped by the multiple empires. The people of the Bible lived within the imperial societies. The study of the post-colonial criticism is biblical studies that largely divided into two parts: colonial histories within the biblical text and colonial realities in reader's context. The Scriptaras emphasize the effect of the post-colonial biblical criticism as it challenges colonial biases in the biblical text, interpretations, and institutions, and exposing the role of the empires often and ignored by earlier methodologies. So it resists single story readings and advocating for the diverse voices across ethnic, gender, and sexual lines while critiquing the Eurocentric perspectives. The approach confronts biblical scholarship's complicity in the empire building, urging an anti-colonial stance and reparative effort. Unfortunately, yes, it questioned where the stories and the stories were told and who tells them and whose interpretation hold authority and power. The settings of Midian stories were in the Egyptian empire. The study of the empire is necessary to understand Midian in Exodus. According to James M. Weinstein, the rise of Egyptian empire in Palestine marked the late Bronze Age, following the Hyksos expulsions and Egyptian's New Kingdom military campaigns. The scholars debated whether the Palestine conquest was rapid or gradual. Some, like Cannon and Wright, and they argue for the swift Egyptian dominance, while others, like Sager, suggest a prolonged resistance, and with the key Hyksos cities maybe holding out until Thutmose III, the Megiddo conquest in the early 15th century BC. This period reshaped Palestine's political landscape. Palestine became the province of Egypt's New Kingdom's empire by Thutmose, while the neighboring powers such as the Babylon, Assyria, or later Hittite, or the city and Alassia, and they are sent to the gift Egypt in recognition of the Pax Egyptiaca. However, the peace was the list intended for the emperor, not the non-Egyptians. The determining the time of the Moses in relation to Egyptian history is debatable. One possibility places the Exodus around 1445 BCE based on the timeline provided in the Kings chapter 6. Solomon's temple was constructed between the 960 and 920 BCE. And the First Kings 6 state that Exodus occurred 480 years earlier. That is making you to fourth year of the Solomon's reign of Israel, the month of Jibu. So it began to build the house of Lord, right? And then the other opinion is around maybe 1250 BCE. This dating is tied to the Exodus chapter 1, which refers the city of the Ramses and Pithom, reported built by the enslaved Israelites. Although Exodus never mentioned Pharaoh's name, archaeologically and textual evidence maybe links to the biblical Ramses to P. Ramses and constructed by the Pharaoh Ramses II. The time of Midian Exodus is widely associated with related to late Bronze Age, I guess. So encompassing the New Kingdom, Dynasty 18, and the Aramean period, and the reign of Ramses II. Right? The Moro, Bashan, and the northern Israel, a key Egyptian garrison town during the 19th and 20th centuries. And this will reveal a rich archaeological find, and including the Egyptian pottery and royal scables and jewelries, inscriptions, and statues. Mentioned in the setlist first is a topographic list in houses Egyptian officials, military personnel, and the Canaanite population working and alongside with them. and reflecting the blend of the culture and the town's statistic and the importance between the Jordan and Jejoriya villages. Although the historical background of the Exodus is likely set around 100 2050 BCE, maybe the final version, maybe Exodus, probably complete around 600 years later, during or after the Babylonian exile. Yes, the gap between the Song of Miriam and the final redaction raises questions about historical settings. However, the enduring reality in Exodus is the empire setting, and whether in Egypt or Babylon. So as mentioned earlier, Egypt's peace policy served Thutmose imperial ambitions, bringing hardship to the Israelites. Thutmose's peace burdened Palestine's population with the annual harvest tribute, impoverishing cities and weakening resistance. His demand for labor and demanding the rain and particularly the hill country, these operations parallels the story of Miriam, Moses, but affected the Palestinian inhabitants rather than minorities in Egypt. So the story vividly stands out in context of the Moses and Egyptian imperialism. It's Pharaoh's command to kill the male infant. In the Exodus chapter 1, kind of typo, I'm sorry. The Israelites and the descendants of Jacob grew the murderous role in Egypt after Joseph's death. A new Pharaoh, fearing their numbers, enslaved them, subject them to the, labor. So Pharaoh's orders Hebrew wives, as we say before, right? But the Shipwa and then the Pua, they didn't really follow what they really need to do. So this is really defined as the Pharaoh fearing God, save the boys. So when they front those claims, Hebrew woman gave to birth quickly. So God blessed the midwife with the families. The Israelis thrive. Right? So Pharaoh's command, all the Egyptians, yes, they only have all daughters. From the colonial perspective, okay, I repeat those kind of situation from the Pharaoh. Two questions arise. First, one might question Pharaoh's strange command to male infanticide. Emperors typically seek to expand their population through the colonization and conquest. Secondly, if the Israelites had lived in Egypt for 400 years more, according to Exodus 12, then it would be difficult to maintain their distinct identity as Israelites. However, the biblical text in Exodus still presents the Israelites' slavery in Egypt and their liberation and their substantial lives in the post-colonial society as they journey toward the promised land in Canaan. So let's see, the Miriam's exemplify the concept of this sly civility, a term from the Homi Bhabha and discussion in his post-colonial theory. So Miriam and sly civility. Homi Bhabha, as a famous post-colonial scholar in his book, The Location of Culture, criticized fixed cultural and national identities. He emphasizes the instabilities of colonial power and the agency of the colonized in the resisting and reshaping it. He demonstrated how process of the hybridity, mimicry, and cultural negotiations expose the flaws in colonial authority and open up the spaces for resistance and transformation. He argues that colonized people mimic the colonizers as a subject of the differences that is almost the same but not quite. In colonial society, the people imitated the languages, behavior, and culture of colonizers, mimicry becoming a dual strategy. Colonial power seeks to colonial through the assimilation, but unintentionally forces resistance. This resistance, emerging from the subtle differences, and destabilized the colonial authority and increasing the surveillance and the challenges and the dominant norms and the disciplinary systems, and ultimately exposes the frightening of the colonial power structures. Moses' life in Egypt, royal court with the Pharaoh's daughter, would have been a time of assimilation into Egyptian culture. He might have sought to identify as an Egyptian prince, even though the details of his life in the royal court are not provided. For him, resistance to Egyptian culture could begin when he fled the royal court after killing an Egyptian who was speaking a Hebrew, and his identity as Pharaoh's son was stripped away. This antagonistic relationship leads to the single of the Song of the Sea in Exodus chapter 15, 1 to 18. The readers of the hymn should not be surprised by the song, but instead recognize the resistance and the victory provided by the Lord. How did Moses maintain this identity as a Hebrew? Although Moses lived among the Egyptians and shared many aspects of their culture, he remained distinct, almost the same, but not quite. Exodus chapter 2, Moses saw the Hebrew Ehau, a Hebrew, one of his brothers, being beaten. During times of peace, Moses maybe did not seem to grapple his dual identity as a mimicry prince, caught between being Egyptian and Hebrew. However, the dual identity came to the crisis point, forcing him to make a decision when confronted by the violence against his own people. This moment marked an awakening for Moses, compelling him to confront his true identity. To understand Moses' status, one must pay attention to Miriam because she was a main character to help him while the infant through the royal family. Miriam's role could be meant for sly civility from Homi Bhabha's post-colonial perspective. Sly civility is a survival strategy employed by the colonized within the colonial society. In the colonial context, colonizer demanded submission from the native population, often under the pretext of developing their culture or land. However, in reality, the colonizers exploited native productions and resources through the political and violent means. Such a situation, the colonized could not fully resist as their primary concern was survival, preserving the one life they have. The slyness emerges from the colonized subject ability to use the language, norms, and expectations of the colonizers, and in ways that subtly disrupt colonial dominance and without resulting the overt relevance. Okay, so Bhabha situated sly civility within the broader dynamics of the colonial mimicry had ambivalence. While it appears complied with the colonial expectation, and it also simultaneously destabilized the binary of distinctions between the colonizer and the colonized, creating a space for negotiation and subversions and resistance. Despite defiance in the challenges the authority of colonizer by exposing the inconsistency of the vulnerabilities, allowing the colonized to reclaim agency within the structure of oppression. So in a sense, sly civility reflects the complex interplay between the submission and resistance, where deference and become the strategies of the critic and the politeness became the weapon for the contesting power. The Hebrew midwives, Shipra and Puah, as we see, did not fully follow Pharaoh's command, but subtly subverted it. They told Pharaoh the Hebrew woman was stronger than Egyptian woman, gave birth, yeah, as you know. So these two women, familiar with the two conditions, both Hebrew and Egyptians women, exactly exemplify the characteristic of the mimicry and the ambivalence in the colonial society. They subtly disobeyed Pharaoh's order, but this act was a slight civility by the wives working perfectly to save Moses, and who later became the leader of the Israelites and lead them out of Egypt. And Miriam and her mother's plan for Moses is the presenting of the slight civility to Egyptian empire. They did not follow the command of the Pharaoh by saving the baby. They preferred the subtle resistance of the colonizer who adopt subvertive the language and the practice of the colonizer to challenge authority while remaining the ostensible complaint. Miriam's action, particularly there, exemplified this dynamic as the negotiating power within the constraints of Egyptian oppression. The Miriam's role ensuring the Moses survive the display the shrewd manipulation of the oppressive system. When Pharaoh's daughter discovered the infant Moses, Miriam, and strategically offered to find a nurse for the child, securing her mother's role as the caregiver. This act of mediating is not overt rebellion. Rather, it is calculating the subversion, both adhere to and undermine the Pharaoh's edict. Miriam is a sly the abilities allows her to navigating the power and dynamic of Egyptian authority, leveraging her subverting position as a child and a hero to infiltrate the royal sphere and then the safeguard Moses' identity and survivor. Baba's framework illuminated Miriam's subtle resistance as a critic of power and domination. By conflicting the outward to the expectations of Egyptian society, Miriam simultaneously reclaimed the agency of her family and community. Her action destabilized the boundaries between the oppressor and oppressed, demonstrating the capacity of the marginalized to resist from within the structure of the dominance. Furthermore, Miriam's role as a prophetess suggests transformative the potential of her career's subvertive act. Her leadership during the Exodus signified the culmination of her resistance, wherein the sly civility of her news evolved into the overt leadership. Thus, interpreting the Miriam's role through the Baba's concept reveals her as an agent of resistance who employs subtle strategies to confront and destabilize and the system of the power she inhabits. Baba also discussed paranoia of power, stating, the authoritarians demanded can now only be justified if it is contained in the language of paranoia. The Pharaoh's paranoid behavior is evident in his command in infanticide in Exodus chapter 1. He feared increasing population of Israelites, but this fear was unfounded. It was a hallucination of the Pharaoh's mind. Although there was no actual threat from the Israelites, his paranoid mindset blinded him, leading him to issue the command for murder. And Pharaoh was unable to recognize the importance of population growth in his empire. His actions were cowardly because he was paralyzed by the fear of unborn power. So paranoia led to the salvation of Israelites. Pharaohs could not prevent the liberation of the Israelites, the song of the sea and the Miriam's song in Exodus 15. And that testify to the outcome of the paranoia, paranoia. These songs allowed the Israelites to praise the Lord by overcoming imperial aggregation. So additionally, in Exodus, one can observe both the people singing in the Moses and the woman singing with the Miriam. Umi Barber emphasized the vox populi by quoting the John Stuart Mill Stanley, but the spirit sound of the vox populi engaged as the one individual in public discussion and a steady communal habit of the correcting his own opinion and collating it with those of others. The Song of Miriam, thought was a short hymn, still contains a significant discourse, and this is really in post-colonial settings. The conclusion, texts invite us explore the original sources and uncover their meanings and interpret them from the diverse perspectives. Exodus chapter 15, 21, Miriam, the prophetess and sister of Aaron, took a tambourines in her hand, and all the women followed her with the tambourines and joyful dancing. Leading them, Miriam sang, "Praise the Lord, for he is glorious exalted. He has hauled both horse and rider into the sea." Understanding this text requires the exegetical efforts such as textual criticism within its literary and historical context. Furthermore, readers are inevitably influenced by the societal context they live. Post-colonial criticism offers a vulnerable framework for addressing contemporary issues while engaging with the Bible. Mimicry and sly civility, as argued by Hopi Bhabha, enable us to interpret the Song of Miriam from the post-colonial perspective. Miriam also devised the shrewd and perspective strategy to counter their strengths. Her method of sly civility not only saved Moses from the river, but also brought his own mother and into the imperial court. This ultimately led the Israelites to triumph over the seemingly and insurmountably Pharaoh, and demonstrating the power of wisdom and ingenuity over sheer force. Okay, thank you so much. I could stop my presentation here.
Thank you, Prof. Park, for the interesting presentation about the text of Song of Miriam from the ancient times and today, using post-colonial criticism. I think this is a great material for us to learn about the role of a woman like Miriam as a prophet from Exodus 15. So now we enter the Q&A session. For anyone who wants to ask directly, can raise your hand or write a question in the chat column. Anyone? Okay, Mr. Sean Ko, please.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I echo the sly civility stance that the prophet and the prophetess actually exhibited in the Old Testament. I suppose we as citizens in our various country can still leverage on this as a way forward for the church, right? We sometimes the government's initiatives do not correspond to what the church subscribe to, but through this sly civility, we are able to partner with the existing authorities, the government, and then to ensure that our church is not compromised. What do you think of this position?
You mean in the church settings, like civility nowadays? Yes, thank you for the good question for now. I think yes, still flexibility, especially if I have a Taiwanese church and even in Korean, if I'm the Korean, so maybe I have some Korean background as well, right? So in Koreans, we have merely two different sections. Some churches conservative, if I say conservative, right? And then the other is also kind of liberate and more progressive churches really going. So whenever some kind of issues happen, how do we really engage with this situation at the same time? And then, for example, if this is more like a colonial setting is important, right? So our church is really liberated. Our churches, whatever we are really want to say, we could say so or not. That's also another issue for us. Somehow, um, I don't know if, for example, if even demonstrative countries in Korean situation, but still economically, how much the Korean is liberated. We are all around like China and United States, Japan, Taiwan as well, right? Taiwan is also related to still post-colonial situation. And if we say about something against in China, or if I really say something against government in Korea, they may have something kind of censor, right? But sometimes the censorship is really coming from ourselves, myself. They don't really say anything, right? But I know from the history, yeah, because under the some colonization, even if I do some dictatorship, if I say kind of power, right? If I have a really power, if I against the power, the figure, right? And then they may be, giving me chance to really block my mouth. That's really happened. And nowadays also really happen, right? So maybe I'm sorry, I kind of, back and forth, so maybe you get a little bit confused, right? But anyway, so slice civility is still, yes, really we need to do in our own churches at the same time. Yes, as I said before, we only have one life. If I say too much, resist too much, and we may occur the kind of violence, right? I don't want to be a really violence to, dangerous violence, making too much difficult time myself, right? So that's why I cannot really go to front as a one, but at least we have one wisdom, we have a way wise to do that, right? So that's the kind of slight civility. We will have some kind of wise. I don't know. I don't. When I come to here, should I share about right now in Korean situation or not? But I know it's all the martial law, right? So still it's really going on. Even though all the paramount, they lift the martial law, but still it's going on. The impeachment is not done yet. So one example, the chairperson of the congressman, the parliament, as you maybe he know, he didn't really conflict with the army of at that time nearby the parliament. He just went out the other gate, or he went over the wall. That's why he could go enter that parliament place and to have the meeting. If not, maybe policemen and soldier, they really block him. He cannot go inside. This is kind of same situation. Yes, maybe we need to go inside of the Jericho to conquer, right? For example, then if do have they are really blocking, how do I really go? We need to some kind of slightly subtly have some kind of planning to keep my own life. At the same time, we need to plan our plan to be complete, right? So the churches, I think, is also same situation at the same time. So I don't know right now, how many, churches, how they really preach about its situation. Usually conservative churches, they still really quiet. Some progress churches and some religious leaders, yes, they do say about something, right? So that's the, one of the situation. Yes, still, unfortunately, we have still those kind of situation. Whenever we see some kind of power, paranoid. I think the Homi Baba, he's really right. Paranoid mind block everything. He thinking about only his way, right? Don't see any other situation. He thinking attacking my. They are all attack me. I have to protect myself. So what kind of method that I could use? I have power. I could use it, right? But I don't think it's the what God really wants us to do. That you have to really see what people's voice, folks, folks popular, folks stay, right? God's words and human beings' words. Voice, yeah. Okay, thank you for question. Yes.
Thank you, Prof. Park, for the answer. Please, anyone want to ask to Prof. Park about this text and the role of Miriam in Exodus, the book of Exodus? So, Prof. Park, can we say the Miriam role is the same like Deborah in the book of Judges, something like that, or no?
Oh, yes, I think so. Yeah, the Deborah. Yes, she is the also prophetess, and she has a really leading to go Israelites. But if I say little bit differently than the Midian has a more under the colonized situation or empire situation, right? So she need to have a more wisdom to wise, but the Deborah they already can get out of, right? So get out of course they enter the somehow promised land, but if Deborah is more internal. How do you have your own leadership, internal, your own people, local people? It should be more local people's leadership, but this media also have a more little bit global. If I say right now, more global, international perspective, media need to do more with her perspective. But maybe that is little kind of differences we could see. For now, I could see this one. Yeah.
Okay, Prof. Park. So we have a question in the chat column from Alfian Apriano. Mr. Alfian Apriano, how does the specific cultural and historical context in which Miriam exists shape her understanding of civility and resistance until the baby Moses period? What role does this context play in her spiritual formation to be slaying civilian?
Okay. So overall, Miriam story can be seen as the microsome.
Yes.
Microsome of large struggles face the individual's or post-colonial context, illustrating how civility serves as the means for survival and self-development. Yeah. Yeah, I think the word is okay. So how the baby Moses, right? So it maybe I thought I could be a little bit more from here, but if we have those kind of questions, yes, the slide stability is you already accept what is really going on. And the slide stability is the meaning, yeah, for the post-colonialism. And through which meaning is medium already know what is culture and the society looks like in Egyptians and Pharaoh's time. Okay? So that's why the civilians meaning is civility is you need to look like a Pharaoh, but you don't really lose your own identity. So Miriam still have it, her own Israel identity, but I keep this identity. Then how do I overcome this bias, this conflict situation, right? So that's why slightly she want to approach the Egyptian daughter, right? If you don't want to really go there, right, then you cannot really do. So Miriam knows, go to this court, and then she want to have really to that suggest some kind of how do I say, more approach and persuasive. It is not easy, of course, right? But you could make the situation, the baby is there. You want to kill them or not? Even the daughters know that he is really Hebrew boy, right? But still, if you don't want to really, you don't need to kill them, then what kind of things you could have it to save him? Then like a medium come to and talk to, right? The approach, the more wisely. So that part is also somehow woman. I don't know. Sometimes the gender differences make the discrimination, right? But anyway, so sometimes women know what is the without fighting violently, but know how do I go more indirectly resolve this kind of problem, right? So that's why I think the daughter, Pharaoh's daughter and Miriam, they know that those kind of situations, how do I do that, right? So yes, if I have one in the nursery, the mother is there, right? If giving the nursing, then the Moses could be survived. So I think the approach, what kind of a methodology and approach and attitude, the Miriam's attitude is really important to receive, to save the baby Moses. So that's why sly civility, which meaning is you have to know both of them can ambivalent. Sometimes our concept of ambivalence is, asking you, where do you belong? You belong the Hebrew, you belong the Egyptian. They maybe ask you those kind of ambivalence in the colonial situation. But if you know both of them exactly, then you will know what I need to do to solve this kind of problem. So that's nice ability, yeah, giving you the chance to think about it. Because Homi Papa also mentioned about that is when the missionaries go, yeah, when missionary enter the other the place, how do the missionary really going to do? You want to do just without any understanding, you will just go to spread the God's words, or you want to know them as you go there, then maybe the cultural uh, exchange, cultural understanding, mutual understanding will help you to complete your own mission.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Park, for the answer, and thank you for the question. Next from Dr. Ronnie Paul. Does Miriam expression reflect formal liturgy or a spontaneous response? Does the song emphasize justice or simply vengeance?
Yeah, I think this is actually that the Miriam song is the Song of Miriam. People usually say this is the oldest, one of the oldest song or oldest, even how do I say, more text or oldest one to be recognized, even much older than the Song of Sea, which is Exodus chapter 19. I mean, Exodus chapter 15, verses 1 to 19, right? So I think I kind of wanted to kind of combine. Yes, it will be really happen after that, Exodus. After that, yes, they're gonna repeat as a one, formally, they want to have a formally invite as a liturgical understanding, because we could say that some kind of how do I say, they could mutually respond, kind of each other, right? So Miriam's coming and the woman's also singing. So those hymnal respondents is coming through this kind of liturgical setting, so structure. So I think, yes, it should be the spontaneously coming, but still they could develop as a, former liturgy. Yeah. I think that's the thinking.
Okay. So the next from Mr. Sozanolo, please. Oh, I think the unstable signal from Mr. Sozanolo. Where are you, Mr. Sozanolo? Okay. Okay, from Mr. Nepo Lauli, please.
Thank you for the time. I just a simple question about the feminist theology that uh, how can Miriam's song uh, inspire a feminist theology that firmly grounded in scripture while also pushing for justice and liberation for women today? Because we have a challenge that the waste woman has been historically excluded from the church in the role, and how we can be use this song of Miriam to build our theology in feminism. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's the great question for feminist understanding, right? So yes, today I want to little bit more focus about the text itself, right? But so far, many feminist theologians they mention about the Miriam and Deborah, as you mentioned before, but they could see as a one kind of feminist itself kind of highlight what they're really doing, right? But the post-colonial concept is kind of I want to really add more. That's the I want to go more. And then if we see that this kind of medium, yeah, in the churches, what about the to church leadership? Is this the one, my question at the same time? We do have in our school, yeah, we do have some female, the girl pastors from the Indonesia, and they are really good. Yeah, our school have also, I know some of them. That's really nice. Every time they do have, good voices to bring up and know about what is the justice, and even they really warm, touchable preachings they're really doing. That's I could really see when they do some preaching in here, and then, but I'm also glad, many women pastors in Indonesia, and they do have some, pastorship, but at the same time, still, I think still kind of need to be more, right? So leadership, if women's leadership could be more than any other places, then it would be great to know. And yes, even I cannot really generalize, that's really for sure, right? But still, some conservative churches in even Korea, they don't have a woman pastor, they don't have a woman ordination. So that's also really some issue still, right? But there's still big, they are really big pro, 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 Presbyterian, I'm sorry, today is kind of Presbyterian churches in Korea, some part, not whole, one part. So many churches, right? But they don't still allow the women's and leadership. And whenever they say about why, still cannot really understanding the reason for that. Yeah, maybe that's another issue to discuss, right? Yeah, some leadership, yeah, could be better.
Thank you, Mr. Nepo Lawli. And for the answer from Prof. Park. Anyone? We're still waiting, Mr. Sauzulu. We have about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Please, Mr. Zozanolo.
it's like I can unmute on it. I thank you, Mr. Pardede. Professor Park, I asked, um, you have said that Miriam sometimes read someone read as a male Miriam. What do you mean?
Oh, the
Ah.
name. I'm sorry. The name. Usually we thought Miriam as a female name, right?
Yeah.
Like a Miriam.
Why someone read Miriam as a male Miriam? Why someone read as male, not female?
Yeah, because maybe that English a little bit confused you. So just I could see the man's name, son in Chronicles. We could see the Miriam as a male's name. Yeah, that's the one thing. What was like the first?
Yeah. I see.
Chapter 4. Yeah, chapter 4, verse 16 or where 17? Yeah, 16 and 17. Because I want to know what's the really etymology about the mediums, right? So that's what I put it as a meaning of the medium, Mara. So that is also used not only woman's name but kind of man's name, kind of informative understanding about the name of a medium.
And then what is the difference of mimicry and sly civility? What's the difference? I think that the sly uh, in the side of the colonized, and I think that the mimicry in the side of colonizer. What can you explain more?
What's the difference, right? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that is also good way to understand about what's the post-colonialism. Yeah, mimicry is you could say the same, but not quite. That's really coming from the Homi Papas. So mimicry is, yes, if I am a colonizer under the Japanese, right? Then, yeah, in Korea like that, right? So I'm Korean, but it's Japanese colonization, right? So I am like that, right? But mimicry is I act like everything like a Japanese, right? So the same, I could speak Japanese. I just like to eat more Japanese food, right? Some kind of culture, right? Culturally, really, I want to get engaged with the Japanese more, like that is I going to try to do that. But that time, I also have ambivalent. The same time, it was quite the same, but not that same. The same, but not quite. So even though maybe I could have sometimes, looks like a really Japanese, I acting like that, but still, if I really enjoy my Korean food with my family, then I cannot really be a Japanese at all, right? Even Japanese, they thinking in this kind of at all, right? Also Japanese, they want to be a colonized Korea, but they still say that you are second citizen. They don't really say that you are the same, like a royal family, right? The colonizers themselves want to include when they need the resources, when they have some kind of productions, they want to take in this kind of way, right? And then they say, oh, you are the Japanese, you coming, right? So that mimicry is giving you the kind of ambivalence. I keep the really same thing at the Japanese and at the same time. Then slide stability is kind of one of the methodology. How do I use? But sometimes I need to do something decided. If really need to, I will be working for the Japan or I will be working for the Korean. Then I need to really decide it, right? Even though I am the colonized one, right? Then I'm working for Japan, which is really media working for the Hebrew people, right? But you don't really go to violently come, but little bit slightly go to methodologically different approach. So mimicry is, I think, your or more concept mindset. But slide stability is happen when you do some strategies, something actions, right? When do you need to something differently, but you looks like a really follow it, but not that follow. So mimicry is the same, but not quite. The
Not
slide,
quite.
not quite. But slide stability is, yes, I could looks like a follow it, but not that I'm really following the methodologically. Then, yeah, maybe your action should be a little bit kind of same, but what you're inside it is also need to be, expressed, and then do what kind of practice you're doing is differently coming through the two concepts.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you for your questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Susanolo, for the question and the great answer from Prof. Park. So maybe a last question. We have a few minutes before close this session. Anyone? Last question? No? I remind all participants to fill link attendance at the chat column. Don't forget to fill link attendance at the chat column. Okay, so before we give the appreciation to Prof. Park, we will have a photo session. So to all participants, open cam. I give to Miss Sanya. Okay, thank you. So thank you, Prof. Park, for your presentation, and we would like to give a little appreciation digital certificate. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you, Prof. Park, and God bless you. So this is the last part from our seminar today. And for the closing session, I will give to Dr. Sri Mulyani.